What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother Top Dog for the $5 donation via the PayPal. And he had a question. He says, can you do a video explaining why the NBA didn't make Steph Curry the face of the league from 2015 to now, despite his massive popularity and mass influence outside of basketball? Well, when you say that last part, massive influence outside of basketball, do you really mean that? Because Steph isn't really a spokesperson about a lot of, he is some things he and Aisha, there are some things that they champion, but from what I could tell, Steph is not a real activist or anything like that. Did you mean, when you say outside basketball, do you mean like as far as the fan base, as far as how influential his style of play is, and just fans in general, just outside I think you meant that. Okay, I think that's what you probably meant by that. But look, it's so obvious that Steph Curry, when it comes to the game of basketball the past decade, he has been the most influential player by far. Now, I do sometimes like to state that some of the reasons why they shoot threes more is because of analytics, and that predated Steph Curry. However, Steph Curry and what he has accomplished has accelerated that process. He's the best shooter I've ever seen, and I've been real resistant with that. Like the first couple of years, I was like, look, I think we jumping the gun here. One season of him shooting like that shouldn't erase Ray Allen and Reggie, but look, he's the best three-point shooter I've ever seen in my life. He's the best shooter I've ever seen. I almost never see this guy shoot air balls. He shoots at an extremely high rate volume wise, and he still hovers around 40% from three. And this is in his out of prime state. He's a 91.1% career free throw shooter, number one in NBA history. All indicators show that he's the greatest shooter I've ever seen. And, part of it is Steph Curry is 6'2", 6'3". So that's within the norm of society. He looks like a smaller guy on the television, on your screen. And the way that he plays basketball is more attainable to most people. Most people, I'm not saying they're going to become the shooter that Steph Curry is, but if you put in the work, you can definitely become a really good outside shooter. And if you work on your handles, you can develop a game that looks at least a little bit like Steph on a lower stage. You understand what I'm saying? It's attainable. Whereas a guy like LeBron James, who's 6'9" and 250, unless you're blessed with those athletic abilities and that size, to most Americans, it's just not attainable. They can't relate to a guy like that. They can marvel at it, but they can't relate to it and mimic it, is what I'm trying to say. It's not something that they can say, man, if I work hard, maybe I could be the next Steph Curry. They can say that. They can't really say that for the most part about LeBron. So absolutely. The way the game is predicated on outside shooting and three-pointers, ball handling, long range, deep threes, that's Steph Curry's imprint all the way. As a matter of fact, LeBron James has augmented his game to fit in with the modern day game. He now takes a lot of outside shots, although most of the time they're uncontested for the most part, or he gets a pretty good damn look. But anyway, why isn't Steph Curry the face of the NBA? Well, Steph Curry doesn't have a machine working 24/7, 360, 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 a year, promoting and pushing an agenda. He doesn't have that. And no matter how popular he is, when you have a guy who has a literal machine working for him to promote and push him in connection with a media that still sees that guy as somehow as the face of the league, then that has hampered Curry a little bit. Curry is like the people's champ. You know what I'm saying? Like, Curry is like Muhammad Ali when he was in exile for 3 years. I know it's kind of a stupid analogy, but I'm just trying to think of something off the top of my head. Where, you know, on paper, you had somebody else that was the champion because Ali was exiled from boxing, but everybody knew who the real guy was. Everybody knew who the real champ was. Over the last 10 years, you cannot argue that LeBron James has been more influential or more successful than Steph Curry. You can't. His stats look better? Yeah, I guess you could argue that. But has he had more impact on the game? Has he had more winning impact on the game? No. And that's with a whole media working 24/7 to put talent around LeBron. Now they're trying to work on having Giannis go to the Lakers. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. No other player has ever benefited from this shit. None. So it also doesn't help that Steph Curry, by the media or the love media having an agenda, it doesn't help that Steph Curry has a winning record in the finals against LeBron. So that has to be that has to be minimized as much as possible. You know, when, for instance, when Kevin Durant was with the Warriors, you heard people in the media saying, well, KD needs to leave the Warriors because there was already friction between him and Draymond Green. And I already had my eyes suspiciously looking at Draymond Green any fucking way about that whole situation. But all of a sudden now, Kevin Durant has to leave the Warriors to prove that he could lead a team to a championship. So they're already working forces to break up that Golden State Warriors team because LeBron was going to go west. Stuff like that. So you have a machine that's in place to push LeBron James as the face of the NBA. And then you have these others who work within the media, these media pundits and these writers who put out hit pieces on players, pressuring them to leave and prove they can win. It's not funny that when Kevin Durant did leave Golden State and he failed in Brooklyn, all of a sudden it didn't matter anymore. Notice that when mission accomplished and he left, that's all they wanted. Now all of a sudden Kevin Durant could lose in Brooklyn, he could lose in Phoenix, and they didn't give two shits about it. As long as he left Golden State and broke up that super team, that's fine. But, you know, that comes from the ultimate politician himself, LeBron Ramon James. Just like it's been now proven that when James Harden was having issues with the Thunder management, back when James Harden was the Thunder, it was LeBron James that was helping to push him to go sign somewhere else because he wanted to break up that Thunder team. That's him. And I think another thing too, y'all, LeBron James came into the NBA, you know, as a force. Whereas Steph Curry struggled the first couple of years in his career with injuries and a little bit unevenness in his play. It wasn't until 2013, maybe 2014, they started to play well. And then they had that championship team in 2015, but they were still more of the Splash Brothers, right? It was Clay and Steph, averaging around 22, 23 points a game. It wasn't until 2015-16 that they really started the offense really started revolving around Curry to the point where he was averaging 30. And then all of a sudden, that's when you start having all of this Curry mania. And for a while, it was Curry mania that year, 2015-16, when they won 73 games. It was Curry mania. And at that point in time, you can make a strong argument that Curry was the face of the league. But then, all of a sudden, like the politician that he is, when the Cavaliers won that championship, what did LeBron say? That right there made me the greatest player of all time. And then all of a sudden, you start seeing a shift of focus back to LeBron. And no matter what Curry would do, they would say things like, well, afterwards, is this really Curry's team or is it Kevin Durant's team? Kevin Durant's on a super team. They wouldn't directly criticize Curry, but it was indirectly criticizing him, saying he was on a super team. Never mind that LeBron was on the super team his damn self. And one other point I want to make too, I think that hurts Curry is that Curry's personality is sort of subdued. He's not a big, boisterous personality like Charles Barkley. He's not as demonstrative as Magic and Michael. He doesn't have the trash talk savvy of Larry Bird. You know, his personality is a little, I don't want to say dull, but it's not this big, boisterous personality that you often see in stars. And that kind of hurts him a little bit too. But anyway, that's what I think kind of has hindered him. But we all know when it comes to his game, though, even if the media won't acknowledge it, he's been the most influential basketball player, I would say, since Iverson. Man, tell me what you guys think. Perhaps since Jordan. Definitely Iverson.